Dashboards has become a standard business tool and an integral part of every business. For every organization, it's an essential tool to analyze data and ultimately help our users in decision making. The main focus is to provide the business with a clear, simple, and informative dashboard, which tells the user a story, and also it can help us to understand the dashboard in one glance and gives us an opportunity to take an action. So the question is, are there any hard and fast rules to follow? Do this, do that? Well, not really. Designing a dashboard is a combination of best practices and creativity of laying out a story. And in this tutorial, I'll be sharing the best practices to design a dashboard. So without any further delays, let's get started. Welcome back, this is Gurpreet from DataViz Canvas, and in today's tutorial, we are going to learn about the best practices to design a dashboard. Before we start the designing principle, we need to understand the business requirement and the problem that we are trying to solve. So first of all, there can be a lot of issues in the business which we are trying to address and trying to provide a solution for them. So understanding the problem is really important, and asking the relevant questions to come up with the solution or to understand a problem is really critical. And once we understand the problem, we need to figure out the data set which we are going to use, and we need to make sure that the data is clean and is in the right format. We should not work with the data that is not needed. So we have seen in most of the cases that we bring a lot of data sets just to make sure that we have everything. So in dashboard designing processes, the main key is keep the data simple. Less is always more. So once we understand the problem and once we have the data ready, we need to draft a sketch of the requirement and how we will display the information on the dashboard, addressing all the questions related to the problems. So we then focus on the design. And majority of the slow dashboards are due to poor design. So designing is really important in any dashboard development process. So once we have these components ready, then the next step is to design the draft. So drafting the design is mainly focusing on three components, which is foundation, structure, and information design. And in this tutorial, we'll be focusing on the foundation. So foundation helps us to identify our target audience, understand what type of dashboard we want to create, and why is it valuable to every organization. So this is the starting point of every dashboard, and we need to find the specific reason why this dashboard is useful for the organization. So once we set the foundation right, then the next step is the structure of the dashboard. Structure helps us to start designing our dashboard, including what form it should take, how to design for different audience, keeping in mind the way they understand the data, and what navigation, interaction, and capabilities will make our dashboard design useful and engaging for every organizational user. So structure is the second most important, most critical component of dashboard designing. It also gives us an opportunity to define the right way of looking at the problem or the business, and gives us the capability to derive the insights out of dashboard and gives us the option to take a particular action for a particular problem. So once the structure is ready, the third really important component is information design. Information design dives into the detail of an interface and an information design and the best practice for charting and data presentation. What does that mean? So how do you convey a lot of information without making it feel overwhelming for the users? So as I mentioned earlier, less is always more. So focus on the problem and provide a solution targeting to that issue or the problem, and design the dashboard with an information telling a story from what the issue is to why is it happening and how we can resolve that. So all that story is designed with that information in such a way that it makes it easier for the user to understand without overwhelming them with a lot of information. So now that we have had a brief description of all these structures, let's dig deeper into foundation. So what is foundation? So foundation is a starting point of every dashboard, and it helps us to find a specific reason why this dashboard is useful for our organization. So in order to understand that, we should ask these three questions. The first one is, who is my audience? Because that's really important to understand about for whom we are creating this dashboard, right? The second one is, what value will this dashboard add for the business or the organization? And the third one is, what type of dashboard I am creating? So all these three questions are really important as a part of a foundation to understand our audience and the value of the dashboard and what I am creating and for whom. What is the reason behind it and what outcome I am deriving out of this dashboard, what information, what insight, or what action I am deriving out of this dashboard. So as you can see here, who is my audience is further divided into 4 questions. In order to understand our audience, we need to ask these 4 questions again to ourselves or to the business. So that's one of the really key important aspect of requirement gathering as well, to understand your audience, because that will change the entire designing process of a dashboard. So dashboard, always we need to start building a dashboard with audience in mind, and we need to make sure we know who is the consumer of the dashboard and what are their information needs, what do they already know, and what are their experiences. As we design a dashboard, understanding the consumer of the dashboard will help us to craft product that they love to use. We want to create something with which user can relate themselves and can feel that this is the right information which I am needing, and I will utilize this information to derive some really nice insights and take a particular action to improve my performance of the product, sales performance, or any other KPIs with which they can relate themselves. But a complicating factor is that most dashboards have multiple audiences. In fact, delivering the same dashboard across an entire organization has the potential benefit of getting everyone on the same page. For example, if we are creating a dashboard for sales KPIs and we are building that dashboard keeping in mind that CEO of the company would like to see the sales of the product across the portfolio, across different centers of their portfolio. And at the same time, there is a sales team who would like to see the trends of their product across different regions, different states. So considering that in mind, we have to make sure we cater all different type of audience so that they are all at the same page. However, a diverse audience is hard to serve well. Therefore, always try to prioritize the audience so conflict can be more easily handled. So here are the few factors to consider about your audience and the implication of the dashboard design. So first one is the role. When you design a dashboard, you need to understand the people for whom you are making the dashboard and what decision do they make and what question do they need answered. So accordingly, structure the information to make it super easy for the end user to get the answers really quickly. So as I mentioned before, if we are talking about sales and we are trying to show the sales by product for different region, and there is a different audience where we are catering. For example, CEO would like to just see the high level numbers for sales and the sales growth across all the portfolio, whereas operational team or sales team want to see the trends across different product in multiple regions, multiple states. So you have to keep that in mind while structuring or designing the dashboard so that all the information is structured in that way so it gives the answer to a different audience really quick. And the second one is the workflow. That's really important as well. So we need to understand the workflow, in what context the users will be reviewing the dashboard. What information are they using on daily basis, and how much time do they have to review the numbers? So again, taking the same examples of sales. So if we are looking from a seer point of view, they want to just look at the dashboard for a few seconds and want to get the daily numbers of their sales. They would not like to dig deeper at the operational or drill down level. So they will have a few seconds or maybe a minute to review a dashboard to get the numbers. And they can be doing that on their mobile devices. So we have to design the dashboard in such a way that it is user-friendly for the business or the users to see that on their tablets or mobile phones. So that kind of information, the workflow, we need to make sure in terms of accessing it and what kind of answers they want from the dashboard on daily basis. So they might be looking at the sales on daily basis, or they want to compare the sales number as what they were at the same time last year. So that kind of information, we need to be made it available using the band numbers, like big S numbers, so that it's clearly seen and quickly without any delays, right? So that kind of workflow, we need to keep it in mind. And the next one is the data comfort and skills. So we need to make sure how the audience who will be using our dashboard, are they proficient in data exploring, and they know how to use numbers, and are they sophisticated with the technology they are using. So accordingly, if based on the user or the audience, we need to guide them through the dashboard on how to look at different sections of the dashboard. So we might need to structure the dashboard by adding a lot of information icons and providing natural language to explain what is there in the dashboard. So we need to design the dashboard using that kind of skill set of the people as well. And then the next one is the business and data expertise. So we need to make sure how familiar are they with the key performance metrics. Do they understand where the data is coming from, and are they familiar with the internal company and industry terminologies? So there might be scenarios where business doesn't know from where the data is coming. So it's better to provide some information on the dashboard that this data is coming from, let's say, Salesforce source system or SAP source system, and also providing the information on how old is the data or when was it last refreshed, and also in terms of the KPIs and the industry terminologies and the benchmarks. So it's kind of a data dictionary if we can provide that in an information tab in the dashboard. So if they have any questions, they can go through it and we can navigate them to understand the dashboard in a better way. So these are the few things which we need to keep in mind while considering who is my audience based on these 4 factors. So once we have that, so you can see in this particular dashboard as an example, we are showing the executive dashboard for the sales. And if you can see on the top, these are the big S numbers, which tells us about total sales, total units, revenue per unit. So from a CEO point of view, they will be looking at just the high level number at the top. And from different departments, operational team or sales team, they want to see the trends. So that's the question, what is our sales trend? So this dashboard is giving us the answer to that question. And also we want to know how close are we to the planned sales by category. So it's kind of giving us the benchmarking where they can compare, okay, how close are we as compared to the benchmarking for these categories. And again, how much units are we selling by segment? So here we can see it clearly that this particular segment is selling a maximum number as compared to the other segments. So all these questions are addressed in one particular dashboard considering the audience in mind. So that's really important, and also keeping in mind the business expertise and the terminology. So they have a different terminologies for gross profit, revenue per unit, how are they calculated. So these kind of things helps us to understand the dashboard really quickly, and also providing the information at the top here that select the date for which you want to see the performance of executive dashboard of the sales. So they can select different years which they want to look at. So based on the audience, you can actually design the dashboard and provide the information the way you want it. So now, as we have understood who is our audience, we need to understand what value will the dashboard bring. So dashboard can serve many purposes. So let's take a moment to consider what are we getting out of this dashboard. So let's say first one, it helps the management to define what is important. So as you can see in this dashboard, what is important is on the top left corner, the total sales for the year 2017, the total units, the revenue per unit, gross profit, and sales growth year on year. So these are the really key important factors which are important for the management. And also it helps us to educate people in the organization about the things that matters. So as you can see here, the important things which matter to the organization is their sales trend. And we can see here our sales trend is going down after the second half, in the second half of the year. So why is that? That matters actually to the organization. And by looking at these trends, they can re-strategize their, they can redo their strategies to understand what's happening and how they can improve the sales. So that's what they matter, and maybe it can be because of one particular product in a particular region which is causing an issue. So that way, these dashboards helps people to educate the things that matters and will help them to change their strategy based on what's happening in their organization. And also, it helps them to set the goals and expectation for specific individual or groups. As you can see here, it talks about how close are we to the planned sales by category. So it sets an expectation or the benchmark that this is what we are trying to achieve. Our sales should be at this number by end of the year, and are we on track with that? So that kind of expectation and goals we can set by looking at the value which we will get out of this dashboard. And also it helps the executive to sleep at night because they know what's going on. So think of that way, like if you are not sure what will happen tomorrow with your sales, then it will be hard for you to sleep actually, right? Because you're not sure how your day will be tomorrow. So that kind of expectation, or you know what's going to happen, makes you give you peace. So that's really important by looking at the dashboard. And it also encourages specific actions in a timely manner. So if our sales are not going as expected and we know that we are not able to achieve the benchmark or the set target for this year, we have to revisit our strategy. So that's how we can encourage the users by looking at the dashboard, and that's one of the really critical value which dashboard will bring. And also it helps us to highlight the issues or the problems which we would have missed if we didn't look at the dashboard. So that's really critical value which we can add by providing the alerts in the dashboard, and also communicate the progress of the trends. As you can see in the sales trend, it communicates us that how we are trending over the period of year, and we can adjust the way we want to. So these are really important values which we brings to the dashboard, and we need to consider the dashboard which we are designing, what all values we are bringing. So it again changes based on the audience which we are talking to. So we need to revisit our dashboard designing principles based on the audience which we are targeting and what value we are bringing using that dashboard. So now that we understood who is our audience and what value will the dashboard brings, let's move on to the next step where we talk about what type of dashboard I am creating. We have seen a lot of discussion about definition of a dashboard. Some people argue that something only qualifies if it fits a one page, or shows real-time information, or offers a comprehensive view of the business. Well, all those requirements are too constraining. Dashboard can come in many flavors. What never changes is a good dashboard focusing on the most important information and communicate that information clearly and concisely telling a story of the data. So let's now look at the list of options for our perfect dashboard. So the first one is scope. So scope is really important in displaying the information. So we can display the information specific to a particular function or to a particular department or a product, or we can display the information about the entire organization. So that we need to make sure in order to design a dashboard. So what type of dashboard I'm creating? So we need to make that clear. If we are creating it only for a specific audience, specific function areas, then we design it focusing on that one and telling the story just for that particular area. But if we are designing the dashboard to show the overall broader picture of the entire organization, then we have to tell a story in that way that it goes to different function areas or products as we tell the story. So we need to make sure which kind of dashboard we are creating. So once we are clear with the scope, then the second one is business rule. So are we providing a high-level broad information with a long-term view of the performance, or we are providing a focused near-term and tactical view of the performance? So we need to make sure, are we creating a dashboard in terms of a strategic view or for an operational view? So that way we can modify our draft or the design of the dashboard. And then comes the time horizon. Are we showing the historic data and showing the historic trends, or we are giving the information for a particular snapshot of a time, or we are expected to provide a real-time information, or they are looking for a prediction of the sales or the KPIs to determine how the future will look like. So based on that time horizon, we need to create our dashboard. It can be possible they want to see historic as well as predictive at the same time. So we have to design the dashboard in that way. So we need to clear that picture, what exactly is required. And then the customization. This is really important as well, because if we want to make sure that, okay, one size fits all, and we want to create the dashboard for everybody in the organization, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's sometimes hard to achieve because different people have different issues which they want to address. And in one particular dashboard, it's sometimes hard to fit all those components. So that way, you have to make sure that you customize it based on the needs of the user, and you can provide an overall picture with a drill down hierarchy in that so that it fits everybody's requirement in that. Or you can create different dashboards and do the navigation from one dashboard to another if the user wants to drill down and dig deeper. Then the next one is the level of detail. Are we presenting only the most critical top level numbers, or we are providing the ability to drill down? For example, in our operational sales dashboard, where operational team want to see the details of sales of each individual item, but let's say the CEO only want to see the high level numbers. So how we tell the story from high level numbers to the drillable low level numbers, so that's what we need to know before we start creating our dashboard. So that will come into picture when we decide what type of dashboard we are creating. And then the point of view is the last one, which we need to make sure, are we creating a dashboard just to tell the user what data means and what to do about it? Or we are giving them the option to explore and interpret the results as they see fit. So based on that, we have to decide which type of dashboard we are creating. So the success of the dashboard will come down to your ability to distinguish between useful, productive information and interesting but important information. So as Anthony once said, perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. So that's the first and the most important step of dashboard designing, which is foundation. So let's review it once again. So foundation is the key step for dashboard designing. And in that foundation, we need to understand who our audience is, what type of dashboard I'm creating, and what value the dashboard adds for the business. I hope you liked this session, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a message in the section below. And I will see you in the next session where we'll be talking about the structure of designing a dashboard in detail. Thank you. See you next time.